Are you ready? Are you ready for the comeback? Yeah. Are you ready for the comeback? You know we the ones that ready for whatever. We gon' have to show them something, man. Let me see them hands up all the way front back. You don't understand that.
It has been quite some time from my last Grow series, and I've taken some muchly needed for myself and a breather from the hustle and bustle of making YouTube videos. But I'm back with a brand new grow this time. I will be featuring some Autoflowers from Rocket Seed Genetics and showcasing some brand new equipment with a full breakdown of my setup. So, welcome back everyone. I am glad to have you, and I hope you enjoy episode 1 on this season of Billy the Stoner.
Look at my belt, I built this all from the ground up, it's all by myself, yo.
So, before we kick this off, I should probably explain a few things. Like, what the fuck is an autoflower? Most people think cannabis comes in only two main types, indicas and sativas. Both these kinds differ mainly in their plant structure during growth. Indicas tend to have thick leaves with close together bud sites and prefer to grow shorter and in a more bushier pattern, whereas sativas tend to grow taller with thin finger-like leaves and spaced out bud sites. In nature, as the seasons pass, the plants begin to flip into reproduction mode as the days continue to provide less sun for them each day. This change of light is what lets the plant know that it's time to begin bud development. And these plants that gauge their life cycle by light are called photoperiods. But in 1924, a third variety of cannabis was discovered called rudialis. They were found in the wild mountainous regions of southern Siberia, where the amount of light during a day is completely different than most regions cannabis was known to be grown in. This variety of cannabis was very low yielding, but still somehow it cuts harvest times in half and was capable of still producing flowers despite not having at least 12 hours of light to signal their bud development. These resilient new strains had actually adapted to nature, and instead of relying on a light cycle, they instead trained themselves to automatically begin their reproductive process from their own internal clocks, meaning their lives are relatively short-lived compared to their sister photoperiods, and different strains would have different completion times from harvest. This shorter life cycle meant that any stress caused by transplanting or training the plants would not be beneficial, and instead would seriously handicap the growth and development of the plants. But many considered the quicker harvest turnaround and less experience the grower would need to outweigh the negatives, and began crossbreeding their genetics with photoperiod indicas and sativas, creating what we now know as autoflowers. I have a few new things from Spider-Farmwe to unpack this run. And me and my assistant are pretty excited about it. The first being this brand new 4x2 tent I had them send me over. I'm using this smaller tent this time because a lot of you asked me to do a closet grow, and this 4x2 has roughly the same dimensions as anyone growing within the confines of a regular household closet. In fact, some people use this very tent to line the inside of their actual closets with, because it just fits perfectly. But all my ducting and ventilation hookups are already in place, in my basement, so I'm just gonna set it up here as is. And of course, under the grueling supervision of my handy-dandy assistant. These Spider-Farmwe tents are fairly easy to construct and built like fucking tanks when everything is all said and done. It is made of 1680D heavy-duty Oxford cloth and is lined with diamond-reflective mylar. All that gets draped over a powder-coated, heavy-duty hardened steel frame that ends up having capabilities of supporting up to 140 pounds of equipment. In a nutshell, this thing is built to stand the test of time and support a load way heavier than it looks like it was intended for. Kinda like my ex-girlfriend's bed frame. Although this thing ends up fitting nice and snug, I'm going to end up moving my 5x5 beside it, or just taking it down for now, because, well, I just need the space to breathe. The final piece to this tent is the floor tray. It's just snugged right into the bottom, making for an easy cleanup of any spills and containment of any loose debris. The space in this tent is minimal, but all that I will require for this run. It ends up standing 6.5 feet tall and has a total area of 8 square feet. They even added an extra seam and cover on these newer models that goes along their zipper line as an added precaution to prevent light leaks. As for my ventilation this time around, I will be utilizing my AC Infinity Cloudline T4 inline exhaust fan. I have an existing dryer vent in place that is attached to a 4-inch ducting, and it will vent all my unwanted moisture and heat directly outside. This AC Infinity has capabilities of moving 205 cubic feet per minute of air, with only creating 28 decibels of noise, virtually silent when running. The sensor attached to it is able to monitor both temperature and humidity. This will keep my environment within the ranges I preset. If anything steps out of the range while I'm away, it will self-calibrate things back into my desired temperatures and humidity. Overall, it's definitely a game changer when it comes to growing any kind of cannabis. Everything hooks up to this main control hub that I have externally placed on the outside of the tent and is relatively easy to install and wire up. As far as the settings I have chosen, it comes with several fan speeds from 1 to 10. And I like to set it fairly high so that if there is an environment issue, air will get pumped out and the problems will fall back into range sooner than later. The temperature high I'm setting it to for germination will be 28 degrees Celsius, or about 82 degrees Fahrenheit. And the high humidity setting for germination will be set to a higher level of 68%. As for the next new addition, I needed some appropriate lighting to properly fit the dimensions of this new tent. This is the SF2000 LED from spider-farmwe. It has a total of 606 pieces of Samsung LM301B diodes, consisting of reds, infrareds, blues, and whites, making this one serious full-spectrum lighting source. And it only pulls 200 watts from the wall in regards to electricity and still puts out 2.7 moles per joule. All this is powered by a fanless mean wheel driver attached to the backing that doubles as an aluminum heatsink. And as you can see here, it's pretty well a perfect fit for this size of tent, which should result in some pretty evenly distributed light penetration. Continuing with my air circulation, because the warm air rises, I will be adding a fan near the roof of the tent aimed downward, as well as one located on the side poles aimed at the stems and the surface of the soil. I also have a 4-inch intake fan at the bottom of the tent to exchange fresh air as well, but none of these will be on until later because I need to build up humidity for germination. I am putting a ceramic heater, floor fan, and an evaporative humidifier on the floor of the tent to finish off the environment. The ceramic heater has a temperature monitor built in and is capable of heating between ranges of 20 to 30 Celsius or 68 to 86 Fahrenheit. My humidifier is not an ultrasonic model because they leave calcium deposits from the hard water on the surfaces of everything in the form of thin white powder. This is an evaporative humidifier, meaning it instead filters out the calcium deposits. Because of this, it requires a filter to properly catch everything, and I switch it out several times in a grow. It also has a monitor that will go into standby when my humidity is met, and the ability to hit between 40 to 75 relative humidity. I have the light set to a low 170 watts until the seedlings require an increase. Links to these spider-farmwe lights and tents you see on my channel will be in the description of the video below. And if you want a discount, you can use the code name Pilly, and that should help you out a bit in the checkout. With everything installed now and tested to be in working condition, and the tent airtight with my temperatures and humidity hitting all my targets, I can now move on to getting things ready for the next few stages. I prepared my soil in advance because this will be the only time I need to for this entire grow. Because autoflowers have a shorter life cycle, any stress they undergo will ultimately affect the overall quality and quantity of my final product. So I just skipped the whole transplant method altogether, and the seeds will be placed into some 5-gallon pots and remain there through all stages of their growth. As always, my soil of choice will yet again be ProMix HP that comes with mycorrhizae inoculant built right into its blend. This is the same soil I use for my photoperids, and I like it due to its high drainage allowance, which in turn provides more muchly needed oxygen near the root zones. This comes from the high coarse perlite and fibrous peat moss it's comprised of. But I need this soil as rich with microbial life as I can get for these autos. So I will be adding in some extra worm castings from Gaia Green. They are basically unprocessed manure of earthworms, and they come fully loaded with microorganisms and nutrients beneficial to the plants that boost the soil and encourage strong plant growth. I have added in about 5 cups per 5-gallon batch of soil, and I would normally add in a little bit more, but with what I bought for this run, this is just what it works out to when they are divided evenly amongst the pots. I will also be adding in 2 different kinds of mycorrhizae to the mix to help ensure the root development takes off with a bang. Mycorrhizae is a fungus that remains active in almost all nature worldwide. It creates a network of intricate webbing underneath the soil that bonds with the root structures of the plants and works symbiotically exchanging sugars for carbohydrates, while at the same time upping the availability and intake of nutrients by assisting and widening the area of consumption. Basically, a beneficial extension of the plant, but underground. The Myco Jordan you see here isn't cheap, but with a spore value of 500 spores per gram, this will detrimentally increase the quality of the soil and speed up growth quite notably. With all these amendments made to the soil now, I can be confident that the seedlings will be given the best opportunity to have some aggressive growth during their short lifespan. And better growth equals better buds, hopefully. This mix of perlite, peat moss, worm castings, and mycorrhizae will supercharge the medium with beneficial bacteria and microbes that work with each other in symbiosis, hopefully speeding up these autoflowers in development. When the seedlings are ready for some actual nutrients, I will be using Diablo's two-part products called Two-Shot, Part A and B. It is dosed in equal amounts, incrementally higher as the plants age from veg to flower. I will be using several other products in this grow from the Diablo line as well, but I will explain all that in another episode as the grow progresses. So if you want to follow along with me and grab some Diablo gear, head down to the website and check it out. The beans I will be popping are from Rocket Seed Genetics, called Orange Cake. It is an indica-dominant strain comprised of California Orange and Mimosa strains, hitting around 19% on the THC scale. The water I will be soaking them in is pH to 6.3, and the seeds will soak for a total of 18 hours in complete darkness. Spider-Farmwe just put out this intelligent seed mat where I can actually set the temperature within a point range to heat the water to my desired amount. I'll be setting it for 26.6 Celsius or 80 degrees Fahrenheit. And I'll be placing a towel between it and the glass to buffer the heat out a bit before I turn the lights off for 18 hours. After their time soaking with the lights out, it's time to see if the seeds have sunk to the bottom of the cup. If any of the seeds are floating still, they are most likely not viable and will not produce a taproot if planted. But if they sink to the bottom, it's a good indicator that they have germinated successfully and are ready for soil. And in this case, it looks like every seed has sunk successfully. Each of these plants will be getting a saucer and spacer to ensure the proper drainage in these fabric pots is perfect. These Orange Cake Auto Genetics apparently have the smell of the zest that spritzes out of an orange when you cut into it. And that's supposed to be while it's growing, while it's in the jar, and while it's being smoked. I honestly can't wait to see for myself. The first water for these seeds, once planted, will be 40 milliliters of unchlorinated tap water. I have pH to 6.3. And I will water around the perimeter of the seeds so the roots have something to grow outward into. I picked up some humidity domes on Amazon to place over the pots to keep the humidity in during the germination process. They will ensure the high humidity necessary and required for these little mutants to sprout properly. Each one will receive a light misting on the inside with some pH water I use to water them with. Usually, with this method, my seeds will show life after only 2 or 3 days, as long as these conditions are maintained. I am fortunate to have the setup I do to help keep my environment within this Goldilocks range. But during this stage, it's very nerve-wracking and gives me anxiety until I see those first cotyledon leaves pop up out of the dirt. So, several times a day I inspect the tent and keep up the environment with some muchly needed TLC. To prevent unwanted bacteria developing within the domes, twice a day I remove them and wipe them dry before reapplying a mist of fresh water. Autoflowers are very temperamental, mainly because these genetic freaks are more inbred than the fucking royal family. But after only 3 days, I finally see what I've been waiting for. Life. Beautiful, nurtured life. For the next week or so, I will keep the domes on, but be removing them several times a day to mist the surface area of the soil to keep the root zone moist at all times. As the days go on, I will slowly crack the vents open on the domes more and more each day to acclimate them to the RH within the tent before removing the domes for good. By next episode, I will most likely be giving some nutrients to these little guys if their progression shows me they need it. So in the meantime, I want to thank all my loyal viewers for continuing to watch my videos from start to finish. It really helps the YouTube algorithm, and that helps get my channel's content out there for more to hopefully learn from and enjoy. But so does hitting the like and subscribe button like a fucking bong rip if you haven't already. And drop me a comment below just to say hi. I really enjoy your feedback. And remember, stay safe and keep those lungs full.